I mean, you're just a total nutcase. Maybe you're there to murder them. They don't know, right? Hey, Anton here from GT Canada. Welcome to the Car Stories segment of this channel. Today I want to talk to you guys a bit about one of my most memorable road trips. And for those of you that watch the other Car Stories segments, you know that I talked about the thing that spawned the start of our $500 road trip was based on the fact that I love doing road trips where things don't always go as planned. Those are the ones that you remember the most. When you think back to the trip where you got in your car, you went where you wanted to go, and you got where you wanted to go, and everything worked out great, you don't remember that. You remember the one where something went wrong. So one of those trips for us, it was a number of years ago. So those of you that know me, you know that I have quite a few kids. We've got 5 kids, so we always needed a bigger vehicle. So we were driving our GMC Safari all-wheel drive. It was a great van. I loved that van. I had bought a new boat, and so I had bought an old, it was a I think it was a 77 Ski Nautique. And so you can see the pictures here. It was definitely an old boat, but it was a great boat. So I had just gotten into wakeboarding, and I was looking for a boat that was inexpensive, that I could get out on the water and just go have some fun, right? And so the Nautique checked all the boxes for that. And I had to drive from Alberta to Saskatchewan to pick up the boat. I did, drove back with my van. But when I got home, I noticed that the fenders were coming off. So they were loose on the trailer, and that was a bit of a concern. So I had just taken some wood screws, because that's all I had, and I screwed them into the fenders to hold it on through the brackets, and it was okay. The very next day, we had planned to go camping at one of our favorite lakes out in BC. And so we can't fit everything we need into our van for camping. And so the boat makes a great trailer for that. So we loaded the boat up with all of our camping gear. So we had our tent in there, we had our sleeping bags, our pillows, we had our food, cooler full of food, all that stuff. I think we even had firewood. I threw a bunch of firewood in there so that we'd have firewood. We wouldn't have to go find some or buy some or whatever. So we had really loaded it down. And we jumped on the road and we started heading there. And we were almost, so it's about a 4-hour drive, 4.5 hour drive for us. And we had been driving for 3.5 hours. We were at the lake, but to get to the spot where we were going, you had to go over a bridge, which goes over the lake, and then go south a bit to where the campsite was that we were headed to. And so as I came over the bridge, we were getting more and more excited. We go off the end of the bridge, and there was a noticeable drop from the bridge height down to the road height. And so the van went over, thump, thump, and then the boat trailer went over, and it smashed. It went boom. And right when it went boom, the tires blew out. It was just the one tire, just boom, blew up. So I pulled off to the side of the road. So that's when I found out I don't really have a jack that's going to lift this trailer up. So I'm unloading the back of the van, because we did have stuff in the van. So I'm scrounging in the back of the van looking for a jack that's going to work. I get to the bottom, find the jack. It's not really going to work all that great. Luckily for me, there is an RV, a trailer park, right next to where I got this flat tire. So I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to just go through the trailer park. So I'm ready to go into this trailer park, and right at that same time, these giant clouds roll in. It starts pouring down rain. So of course, everyone in the trailer park, they're going into their trailers and closing the doors. So there's nobody out. I thought, well, no big deal, right? Somebody will be out there, and I'll just be like, hey, yo, you got a jack I can borrow? Whatever, right? So now I'm walking around in this trailer park, and I'm knocking on people's trailers, and nobody wants to come to the door, because who knocks on a trailer door in an RV park, right? I mean, you're just a total nutcase. Maybe you're there to murder them. They don't know, right? So finally someone comes to the door and they're like, can I help you? And I'm like, hey, yeah, I got a flat tire. I'm out on the main street. I don't have a jack. Is there any chance you've got a jack? Well, buddy says, yeah, actually I do. And he's got a little bottle jack. So I'm like, okay, that'll work perfect. I'll bring it back, I promise. And he's like, how about I'll just go and watch you use it and then I'll take it back. I'm like, okay, fine, great. He actually has a golf cart. So we jump in his golf cart and he drives me to the boat and I use his jack and I jack the trailer all up and get the tire off. And I don't actually have a spare tire for the trailer. And it's a 5-bolt pattern. The van has a 5-bolt pattern. I'm like, what are the odds? Maybe the tire will fit. So I grab the spare tire from the van and pull it off. It doesn't fit on the trailer. So now I've got no spare tire. And so I go to this guy and I'm like, hey, I'm going to actually have to go into town to get a spare tire for my boat. I need to leave the trailer jacked up to do that. And he's like, no, I want my jack back. So I found a rock and I shoved the rock under the axle, lower the trailer onto this rock and give him his jack back. And so now I need to get to town. Well, closest town that would have a tire for this thing, it's an hour away. So I look on my GPS. My GPS says actually you can either go back the way you came, or if you keep going this way, there's a gravel road that'll just kind of go right up and get you into town. It's even faster. So I'm like, great. So we decide to go that way, and we're driving. We get to where it says to turn left to go on this road, and we're looking, and this road is just, it's it maybe used to be a road, but there's tall grass. Nobody's been on this road for a long time as far as I can tell, and we really don't feel comfortable taking this road. So I decided, okay, whatever, I'm just going to take the next road I find. So we drove up a little bit further. We find a road. I hang a right on this road, and we're going up, and this road is winding up the side of this mountain, and then it comes over the side. I'm in a hurry. I want to get to town. I want to get a tire. I want to get back. I've been driving for 4 hours now, and I just want to get back so we can get set up for camp. It's going to be late, whatever, right? I'm going back down the other side of the hill, and this road gets narrower and narrower, and it's barely wide enough for a van. On the one side, there's this cliff, and it's just cliff right down the side. On the other side, it's a cliff going back up. There's trees kind of lining the side of the cliff, but not a whole lot, right? So you can kind of see down. And I'm like thinking, here I'm Colin McRae, the best rally driver ever, and I'm burning through the twisties on the road and getting the van kind of a little bit sideways. My kids are in the back seat going, yeah! They're having the time of their life. My wife's in the seat beside me. She's freaking out. She's like, slow down, slow down. I'm like, no, we're having too much fun. And so we finally come to the bottom of this hill. I'm having fun now, right? This is a great time. And we come out, we come into town. I go to the tire place. They don't want to sell me just one tire. They're like, no, you can't have mismatched tires on your trailer. It's unsafe. So I said, okay, well, tell you what. I only brought the one tire with me, so put that tire on. I'll come back tomorrow. You can put the other tire on the other one, and then I'll be okay. I'll have matching tires. So they agreed to do that. They put the tire on. Now I burn back. We decide this time maybe we should take the other way. So we go the regular highway back, and we get to the trailer. I actually went to Canadian Tire as well and bought my own bottle jack so that I can now jack the trailer back up, because that guy definitely did not want to lend me his jack again. So it's getting really late. We're supposed to meet some friends at that campground, and so while we're dealing with all this, I'm texting him to say, hey, where are you guys at? We're actually held up. We're going to be a little bit late. He texts me back and he says, well, it turns out the battery in my truck died. We were at the store getting groceries. When we came out, the battery was dead. I had to jump start it to get it going before we even left. So now I got to buy a new battery. So he went and bought a new battery. He's got the battery resting on the hood while he's undoing the battery connections. The battery falls off the hood, hits the ground, breaks open. Now there's battery acid everywhere, and his brand new battery's broken. Of course, they're not going to take a return, so he has to go buy another battery and swap that in. So while he's doing that, I'm burning back to go and put the tire back on my trailer, on my boat trailer. So we get back, I get the tire on, I crank it all down, and lower it off the jack, throw the jack in the back, and I'm like, okay, so that just added 3 hours to our trip. No big deal. Everyone's okay. We're just gonna drive the rest of the way. And we've got we had about 30 kilometers left to go for our journey to get to where we were headed. So we're on the home stretch. So I'm driving and we don't get far, not far at all. And I'm like, I haven't really checked my mirrors lately. And so I check my mirrors and I look in the passenger side mirror and I see the tire that I just replaced on the trailer, and it's going like this as I'm driving down the highway. So I mash on the brakes, come to a stop in the middle of the road, and I run out and I have a look, and all of the lugs for the tire are gone. All of them. All 5 lugs completely gone. So I throw the 4-way flashers on. I'm walking down the road. I'm like, they must have just fallen off. Just, right? And I walk and I walk. I can't find any of them. So now what do? I got no lugs. I got a tire that's got nothing holding it on. So I go to the other side. I take 3 lugs off the other tire. So I leave 2 lugs on it, and I take the 3. I put that back on the tire, and I get it all bolted down and cinched tight. This time I put it really tight, tighter than I did before. And I get in the van and I'm like, okay, so when I'm in town tomorrow getting the other tire, I'll also need to get 5 more lugs to get this all done right, but we're still okay, right? Start driving again, and I'm not even driving for 3 minutes, and I look in my mirror and the tire's going like this again. I'm like, crap, I know I got no lugs left. And so I run to the back. Luckily, I caught it in time, and I was able to, all 3 were still there. They were out, but they were there. So I tightened those back down, and I start driving again. Now I'm not confident in these at all. So for every 1 kilometer that I drove, I stopped and went back, and every time they're always loose. Every time they were at least a little bit loose. So I crank them back tight again, and then drive another kilometer. But I'm scared to drive very fast, so I'm driving 30 kilometers an hour, top speed, on our last 30 kilometer stretch, and I'm stopping every kilometer to tighten the lugs. Eventually, I did manage to get them tight enough that they stopped coming loose, but I still didn't have the confidence to drive fast because I knew I only have 2 lugs on the other side on a 5 lug wheel. It's really not safe. So I stopped every kilometer or 2, checked the lugs, driving 30 kilometers an hour. We finally made it to the campsite. We got into where we were supposed to go, set the tent up and everything. Had a great story to tell. When our friends finally caught up with them, they were so delayed from their batteries breaking that they didn't catch up to us because they were so delayed and we were so delayed that everybody was just extremely delayed for the whole trip. So it all worked out okay in the end. We had a great story to tell. The kids all still remember the story. They all talk about it still to this day. The reason why we started our very first $500 challenge was actually I was telling some friends about that story and how much fun it was. And I was like, if only there was a way to guarantee you could have a fun adventure like that every single time you went on a road trip. I mean, nobody died. Something weird happened and you had to try and figure out how to cope and how to deal with it. And that's when the $500 challenge was born. So I said, well, let's just buy really cheap cars. Really cheap cars, they break, right? So let's do a road trip with cheap cars and see where we get. And in fact, the $500 challenge where I got the MR2, so our first one that we did, that was the route that we took. So that we went actually the same way that I was going for our boat trip, where we had such a memorable experience. And that was one of the reasons why I chose that route, was because I had such fond memories of being kind of in that region, in that area. And it totally worked out great for us. that's one example of a really fun adventure that we had as a family, and it creates lasting memories. I got a lot more stories like that to tell you. That's one of them. We'll keep telling you the stories as long as you're willing to listen to them. So stick around. Check out some more videos when you got some time. If you're hanging around at home, got nothing going on, then for sure.